we believe that worrying is the only way that anxiety exists.
When adversity came, I could have fell apart, but I chose instead to follow my heart. When adversity comes, I will never run, I will adjust, adapt, and overcome. Vision.
Woo! What's going on, everyone? Let's get right into the topic at hand. And so today, as we're jumping right into the topic, today we're going to talk about something that individuals don't actually recognize is common for millions of people around the world. We don't recognize that it affects us in different ways. And so what are we talking about today? Today we're diving deep and recognizing and understanding anxiety because it's prominent in our world today. And so I want to dive into it, talk about individuals who have openly come out about their situations and their battles with anxiety, those who are thriving through it, those that recognize their anxiety, move past it, and figure out how to deal with it for them. And there's also so many different myths and so many different things that people say about anxiety. We're going to go over a little bit of the science of it and recognize that this podcast episode today isn't only for those who have suffered from anxiety, but it is also for those who's just looking to learn more from the human mind. Because who is not looking to learn more from the human mind? Nobody here, because if you're here, you want to grow, you want to learn, you want to be successful. We talked about this last episode. Those people who want to be successful recognize that the learning never stops. Lifelong journey of learning. All right, here we go. Anxiety. So when we think about anxiety, I want you all to start thinking about, well, first, your thoughts on anxiety. Your thoughts on anxiety, put them in the comments. Let's start to really form a thought process here. Let's start throwing some different ideas out so that we can come together and evolve our mindsets. So first things first, individuals don't recognize that anxiety is very common in our world today. Not only that, it can be a daily part of several different individuals' lives around you, and you may not even recognize it. It can be you may not actually notice it, but we only consider anxiety a problem or a serious issue when it's chronic or when it becomes overwhelming. Or, and when it becomes overwhelming or a chronic problem for you or anyone involved, then it starts turning into possible depression or panic attacks, not knowing which way to go. And when we think about anxiety, we only think about it as, oh gosh, why is that person worrying so much? Because we believe that worrying is the only way that anxiety exists, right? We believe that anxiety doesn't exist in any other way. We believe that anxiety means worrying too much. Okay, fact of the matter is, just want to be clear, that is not true. That is not true. Anxiety can show up in several different ways, okay? Just because it doesn't, quote unquote, look like someone has anxiety doesn't mean they don't have anxiety. And I mean, if I'm being real, maybe the opposite can also be true. So the fact is, anxiety can look very different for the different individuals involved. It can show up within you or anyone else in several different ways. So it can be worrying too much. And then if it becomes chronic, worrying too much can turn into depression, or it can turn into panic attacks like we've talked about. But it's more than just that. It can turn into different physical responses. something that I have personally dealt with, sometimes different twitching in different muscles or different physical responses and your heart racing in different ways, okay? And so if you search on Google, it's going to say a lot of different things about what anxiety may or may not look like. But the fact is, it can look different for every single person involved. And that's why it's important to have this discussion here and everywhere to realize that we got to be there for ourselves and be there for those around us who may be struggling with anxiety. And so it's interesting because, once again, you may not know when an individual is going through anxiety. And so let's go over one of the examples today of an individual who is struggling with anxiety. Now, action movies, okay? You know, I'm sure there's some people here who are interested in action movies. If you're an action movie fan, hit the like button. Matter of fact, if you've ever watched a movie in your life, hit the like button. Besides the point, nevertheless, when it comes to action movies, someone who has come out as an individual struggling with anxiety, for those of you who've watched the movie Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds. And Ryan Reynolds has talked about this in interviews and in different movies and different conversations, that sometimes how he copes with his anxiety is he'll actually just stay in character because it helps him as a way to express himself in a different way that may not always be who he actually is, but it helps him express in a way that he's able to connect with his anxiety to be able to get through it and not let it consume his day-to-day mindset, his day-to-day emotions, okay? And that's what works for him in different ways, okay? That may not work for you in terms of acting in a certain way because you want to make sure that you're staying true to whatever it is that works for you, okay? But that's something that Ryan Reynolds does, and you wouldn't think that someone who's so successful has some of these different issues, but something that we've talked about so many times on the podcast is the fact that in life, everyone is going through something, okay? Everyone has some type of trial or tribulation that they're going through, and so they're working on different ways to cope and connect with it so that they can move forward. So another example of something that may exacerbate anxiety, according to quote unquote Google, and we're just going to go with the research here for a moment, is they say that social media can exacerbate anxiety in different ways. It says that, oh, well, if you're seeing all these different individuals being successful and different individuals doing X, Y, and Z, and you're not doing that, that can mess with your mind a little bit. And when we talk about messing with your mind, we're not only talking about like your full on like surface level, what that means, but it's actually mentioned, and disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. But it's mentioned that, you know, the different chemical imbalances is a big part of what shows up in different individuals when they suffer with anxiety. And when we talk about the hippocampus and what that means and how that connects with the brain, those different things do exist and are proven in psychology. You notice that, guys? I did a little bit of research for y'all in this episode. I did study counseling. I did, read a few books when I studied English, undergrad, master's degree, all that. But, I did some research for y'all. All right. Anyways, getting back to the topic. So when it comes to how that affects the brain and our mindsets and everything like that, we don't often recognize the science behind these different things. And I'm not going to say that I always understand the science behind it. But the fact is, those things are true and have been proven. Now, getting back to how practically these things will affect our mindsets, to be clear, we don't always recognize that we are our own person. And so when we're seeing different things in media and we're watching different TV shows and noticing other people's lives on social media, you know, it's important to recognize that you still have your life to live. Did y'all hear me in the back? You are living your life. You're not living a social media life. You're not living the real world road rules. Those who watch Love Island, you're living your life, okay? So the fact is, you can consume all that, okay? Take it in for what it is, but recognize that you're still living your life. And so those things can affect your anxiety. And so when we talk about consuming media and how it may affect you or not affect you, and if it affects you in a way that may bring you some anxiety, we don't let it consume us. Okay? And that's, oh gosh, that's way easier said than done, right? I'm not going to sit here and be like, don't let it consume you. All right, bye. All right, podcast over. Don't let it consume you. No, because it doesn't work like that, right? We are all on our own specific journeys, our own specific lives, and how it's affecting you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, okay, do X, Y, and Z, boom, done. Because that wouldn't be real. That wouldn't be real for you. How I have to go through my anxiety is different how you have to go through yours, as well as Ryan Reynolds. Now, different psychologists are going to say different things about anxiety. And I mentioned some of the science a little bit ago. And once again, it looks different for everyone. So as I was going through some of the different things online that talk about anxiety, they give some very specific examples about what anxiety is, where it comes from, this, that, and the third. But how are you going to say that when the first line says that it affects everyone differently? You know, we talk about, the box, right? Thinking outside the box. But the world has tried to tell us what we're supposed to think, when we're supposed to think it, and that's it. And that's just so untrue. Because you live your life, I live mine. Let's figure out how to live it the best way possible. So let's continue moving forward and talk about some possible ways to get through it. Now, I want to go into another individual that has came out publicly about their anxiety. I got a joke for y'all. Sorry, I shouldn't tell jokes, but I'm just see, real quick. It's all about meeting people where they're at, okay? But people take the phrase meeting people where they're at and they do it halfway. Like, oh, I'm going to meet you where you're at and talk to you about X, Y, and Z. But really connect. You got to listen to what people are saying. And it's pretty difficult to listen to other people when you're doing a podcast because I'm sitting here talking to myself. But hopefully you're getting something out of this. Now, when we're talking about anxiety and we're talking about individuals struggling through it, let's go through the joke once again. So, what do you call a singing laptop? Adele. You like that? but on a more serious note, so Adele is another individual who has come out as being publicly having trouble and struggling with her anxiety. And as I was doing some research and learning more about Adele's journey on anxiety, it was interesting to learn. And she worked on it in a lot of ways that I feel like would work for me. And I'm going to go through a few of these different things that talk about what exacerbates anxiety, and we'll move forward from there. So Adele speaks on having so much stage fright when she's performed. She's talked about struggling with some of the different situations that has gone on in her life, like her divorce, for example, that has exacerbated her anxiety. And part of the ways that she was able to get through that anxiety She made some very serious lifestyle changes. So, on the top of the list and different things, she completely changed her diet. So, it's said that online that grains are very important in terms of making sure you're getting the proper nutrition. And there are some vitamins, this is true, there are some vitamins they say that connect with mood that may help you with your anxiety journey. For example, vitamin D and other different grains and nutrients that your body needs to be healthy, okay? Like making sure that you're fueling your body properly to be able to move forward through the different situations. And that sounds ridiculous, right? For those who aren't really into nutrition, that may sound ridiculous. But think about it, okay? At the end of the day, let's say your body needs 10 things without a doubt to be healthy and move forward. If you give it 4, obviously it's probably not going to work as optimal as you think it might be, even though you feel great. Okay, so there's just different ways to look at this. And so I want to make sure that I'm painting the entire picture for you all to start thinking about maybe even what your health looks like. Dehydration has also came up in being one of the things that Adele was working on to be able to make sure she put more water in her diet, more vitamins, and getting to the gym, being more active. And that goes back to the science piece as well, because individuals say that, you know, when you're moving forward and you're lifting weights and exercising, you're feeling healthier and you're releasing endorphins to make yourself healthier. And some of those chemical responses that may be going on can possibly be improved. Now, let me say this, because they talk about exercise being like one of the end all be all things. And I'm an exercise person, but I'm going to contradict that for a moment. Once again, we've talked about this the past few episodes. Learn more about you. Exercise is not the only way to release endorphins. And so you have to figure out what you enjoy and figure out what you got to do, because if you enjoy it and you get that release, etc., you're releasing endorphins if you're able to relax and find ways to enjoy your life. So making different lifestyle changes can be very important in your anxiety journey. But I want to go back a little bit where I was in the middle and in the very beginning. Once again, anxiety becomes a problem when it becomes overwhelming, when it consumes you, when it takes over your life in a way that you feel like you no longer have control. So before I get into what you should do individually, first, I'll say this. If you know someone or it's you, seek help. Find someone to talk to. Find a friend, find a family member, even seek medical attention. A therapist, doctor, whatever that might look like for you. Because once again, I've said it once during this podcast, I've said it a trillion times, it looks different for everyone. And so what you might need to do might not look like the person sitting next to you, what they got to do, because you know you're not watching this alone, right? Not only are you not watching it alone, you shared it with a friend. And not only did you share it with a friend, you left a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Besides the point, nevertheless, this is a very serious topic, and I want to make sure that I truly connect with you all here. Anxiety is real. There are millions of people in this world that are affected by anxiety. And even though I've had some moments during this podcast today where I've taken a step back and lighten the atmosphere for a little bit, it's not meant to be taken lightly, because it can consume your life if we don't find ways to control our anxiety and find ways to channel it in a way that works for you. I was even talking to a few other people that talk about how they channel their anxiety as motivation to make them work harder in different ways to be successful. And so when they're able to do that, it's able then to calm them down a bit because they're able to, once again, get whatever release it is they need to then come back and like, okay, I either A, were more motivated to figure out what I had to do to be successful, or B, put my energy somewhere else for an hour or so, and then come back to whatever task I had at hand to be ready to confront it. When it comes to time, right, and deadlines and different things like that, there's so many obstacles, so many triggers. Your trigger is not my trigger. And so we have to understand that there's different ways to take on your anxiety. So once again, learn more about you. Recognize that the story of Ryan Reynolds and Adele, their stories sound great, but it's not your story. But what's cool, what's neat about the fact that Ryan Reynolds and Adele have stories is that now when different individuals come out about talking about their anxiety, it's okay to talk about. It is okay to talk about your anxiety. And if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to, but recognize that it is okay. Now, when you move forward, you connect with it, you recognize it, do what you need to do for you. Because you can, because you will, and you will thrive through it and achieve not one, not two, not three, but everything it is you want to do. Just take the time, analyze who you are, confront it in the way that you need to, be your authentic self, and move forward. Because like we always talk about, your dreams are waiting for you. And not only I am Vision of Hope, but we are Vision of Hope. Take care, everyone.
When adversity came, I could have fell apart, but I chose instead to follow my heart. When adversity comes, I will never run, I will adjust, adapt, and overcome. Vision.